yourself and then walk back out and just, put the armor back on
Gotcha.
and pretend that you're invincible. But providing those safe spaces so men can begin to have those experiences and then start to translate that into their day-to-day life, I think is an important step.
Okay, I can rock
I
with
got
that.
to can I tee this up for Dr. Wilson? I want to add something to the end. I don't want to divert from what you want to say, Dr. Wilson, but I hope you can speak to this too. Because the other misconception is that men who are quote unquote successful are doing okay. I know a good amount of successful men who are broken and who are lost, but to the world, to their wives, to their children, they okay. But I'm getting the text messages and calls, and it's like, bro, I don't even know what I'm doing. So, Dr. Wilson, can you speak to that, as well as what you were going to say?
Well, 2 quick points. Number one, when we talk about safe spaces, I grew up as an abused kid, physically and emotionally. I didn't have a dad, so to speak, so I didn't even know how to be a dad. Didn't know how to be a father. So that makes my role even much more profound when I engage a young person. Number two, we need to tell our stories. Doesn't matter whether you're rich or not, we have a story to tell. In some cases, a survival story. A survival story. And that's way back to barbershop once again, because when you're in that safe space.
Let's go, let's go, let's grow, let's grow, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's go, let's go, let's grow, let's grow, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's go, let's go.
Black Dad Unfiltered, thank you so much for joining us on this live panel, this live discussion, having this conversation.
We have our host kind of address the crowd. Ben?
Sure.
Right? Because this is his house. We're in your
All
house.
right, sorry. I appreciate it. No, real quick, I just want to say welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. We're very happy and thrilled to host Black Dad Unfiltered for this podcast. My name is Ben. I'm the executive director of the Buffalo EOC. Does everybody know what the EOC is and what we do here? Adult education, vocational training programs. We got amazing programs. We take people from, a situation where they want to improve their lives to a place where they got an entry-level job with a credential, with a certification, with something that's going to get them to a point where they can begin to build a career. So we're really happy to be able to do that. And we're happy that you're all here, and I'm glad to be a part of this conversation and looking forward to, sharing some of the wisdom that these gentlemen have. I don't have it, but I know these gentlemen do.
Los, what we got on deck?
Man, what we got on deck today is, like I said, interesting enough. We're having an interview just yesterday before this actual interview here. Coach Rod was talking about being a man has shifted and changed, right? It's changed over time. So back in the day, I don't know if you remember when you said that if you were a man who worked 40, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, you put food on the table, you put a roof over your head, back then that was good, it was solid. Today, you might be neglecting your family. You might be neglecting your children. I'll go into a little bit later because it's too early to jump into it too fast. But T.D. Jakes talks about the balance of the man and how that balance is improper. So talking about that, what we have on deck today is, what does it mean to be a man in the 21st century? So what does it mean to be a man in the 21st century? And today, again, we have Ben Hilligus, who's the CEO, executive director of this building here. We have Carl Shallowhorn as well here. We also have Dr. Marvin Wilson with us as well. I'm also a man that I'm going to try to talk while I have to, but like Ben stated, I like to close my mouth and open my ears because I like people to think I'm deep. They'd be like, he's so deep. No, I listen. I listen and gather information. Yes, so on deck today, what does it mean to be a man in the 21st century? Anything you want to kick off on that before we go down the line?
So I'm going to tee this up for the gentleman, right?
All right.
Because, again, our guests represent various fields from substance abuse training specialists, vocational training, employment. We have the gamut here, education. One of the questions I started realizing, and I always talk about my father. My father taught me discipline just by action, right? My father got up every day at the same time, 2 a.m., went to work, went to bed every day at the same time, 5:30. I can literally say for 30 years I've never seen my father have a sick day. So I didn't know people actually got sick, right? And both my parents worked alternate shifts. So I was only home with both parents for about 15 years of my life, for half an hour. Because food has to be put on the table, rent has to be paid, bills have to be paid. And for me, I was so proud of my parents. That was my model, what I saw. Raising my kids now with social media, with vaping, all these things that our young people are exposed to, I said, holy cow, if I pursue this executive level career where it requires me to be available 60, 80 hours, I'm now neglecting my family. my kids are going to look at me and say, well, you will never hear. They're not looking at it the way I looked at it when I looked at my dad and said, I'm so proud that my dad can continue to do this despite how he feels. So let's just talk about what's that impact like on men holistically. What is that? Are we recognizing that shift? And how is that playing out in your respective fields of social service, substance abuse, and whatever other backgrounds you have to add to it? I'd love to hear from you all.
Well,
Don't fight.
yeah. So, my background is in behavioral health, mental health, substance use counseling. And I think, and we were just talking before the program about how there's so many stressors today that weren't present even years ago. And I think what happens is when these stressors build up, many times men don't know how to articulate, or don't want to articulate, how they're feeling, for fear of being, looked at as being soft or weak or whatever, because you got to be strong, right? And so I don't know. I think for me personally, my history is coming from the place of my own behavioral health challenges. So I learned very early on how to take on things like therapy, which of course is still frowned upon by many people, or not. I would say frowned upon, not accepted. That's a better way of putting it. But just being open and vulnerable in a way that perhaps finding someone to talk to, someone you can trust. We don't always have that. And I think, getting it back to your point about what men can do is really to just find someone to validate how you're feeling. Because oftentimes we have these feelings that, we feel like we might be fighting this battle all by ourselves. And until we open up and talk about it, we might think that we're the only ones dealing with this stuff, and it's not always necessarily true. There's a lot of universal themes that men go through, but unfortunately, because of the way that society is set up, we're told that you can't talk about that. You can't discuss that. Because, like I said before, you're not a man if you do.
Can I say this? Because you said something, I want you to kind of elaborate a little bit more on that. The misconception is that men don't have words. We don't have the right words, or we don't have the ability to communicate. But I heard you say something real strong, like we do, but sometimes we don't feel like we have a space, or sometimes we feel like we might be judged because of it. Because I talk to a lot of men as well who, man, having a conversation is not hard. You go to a barbershop, having a conversation with men is not hard for them to actually talk. So I love that point that you made. It's not that men don't have the ability to do it, but do we have the safe spaces to be able to do that?
It's interesting you say that, because talk about barbershop, there was a group through CS Buffalo and other partners. They had a barbershop series last year, and it was all about going to the barbershop. And it was really just men coming together to talk about what's going on in their lives in a space that was safe. Right, and we need to provide these safe spaces for men to come together. That doesn't involve outside influence or outside, folks that might not interpret things the same way or this right way. If that makes sense.
You got something? I want to lead into. I think Dr. Wilson has something. Because I want to say something leading into that.
I have to push back a little bit,
Okay.
right? I don't disagree. And I get to talking about feel. I love the idea of a safe space, but I also want to be very cognizant of we as men still have to show up in the world. So what's the balance, right? I can't walk in my feelings because the world does not care about my feelings, right? So how does that play out?
I think to connect both points, I mean, it's got to start somewhere, right?
Sure.
Because it is not the norm. It's not the standard for men to be expressive and to, actually process their feelings and share what's happening. We know, the alternative, the way our fathers were, right? It's not healthy. We know that. That's a fact, right? It's not.
Is it a fact? Is it a fact?
From my own personal experience, I
Sure.
would say it's a fact, right?
Okay.
We got a lot of men walking around bottling up all those feelings. You could be two things as a man. I'm stealing this from Bill Burke. Anybody seen the recent?
No, but it's yours now.
You could be fine or you could be mad. Like, those are the two acceptable feelings for men. You could be walking around fine all the time, or you can be,
Those are two.
Do we
Yep.
agree with this right here?
Those are
You
two
could be fine
acceptable ones.
or you could be
I like
bad.
that.
There are more feelings that we experience, right?
Fair
and
enough.
You walk around not expressing yourself, especially from if that's the way your father was, right, and that's the way you grow up, then that's how you interpret masculinity. That's how you interpret manhood, right?
Yeah.
So just this simple point is just creating those safe spaces so men can start becoming comfortable, right, expressing themselves. So then, at a later point, they can be in the world because it has to be in both places, right? It
That's
can't
fair.
just be.
Yeah.
You can't only go to the whatever meeting, and express yourself and then walk back out and just put the armor back on
Gotcha.
and pretend that you're invincible. But providing those safe spaces so men can begin to have those experiences and then start to translate that into their day-to-day life, I think is an important step.
Okay, I
For
can
some
rock.
people.
I can rock
I
with
got
that.
to tee this. Can I tee this up for Dr. Wilson? I want to add something to the end. I don't want to divert from what you want to say, Dr. Wilson, but I hope you can speak to this too. Because the other misconception is that men who are quote unquote successful are doing okay. I know a good amount of successful men who are broken and who are lost, but to the world, to their wives, to their children, they okay. But I'm getting the text messages and calls, and it's like, bro, I don't even know what I'm doing. So, Dr. Wilson, can you speak to that as well as what you were going to say?
Well, 2 quick points. Number one, when you talk about safe spaces, I grew up as an abused kid, physically and emotionally. I didn't have a dad, so to speak, so I didn't even know how to be a dad, didn't know how to be a father. So that makes my role even much more profound when I engage a young person. Number two, we need to tell our stories. Doesn't matter whether you're rich or not, we have a story to tell. In some cases, a survival story. A survival story. And that's way back to barbershop once again, because when you're in that safe space,
Hey, click the like button, click the subscribe, hit some comments, or some information or some questions that you might have. Click the notifications bell so you can be notified every time we have new content that drops. Let's go, let's grow, let's get it.
we can talk as men, Matter of fact, I did a project at Collins Correctional Facility called the In and Out Men Program. I did a 12-week program for men who are incarcerated, who are getting ready to go who could be released, but by court order, they had to go through a 12-week parenting program. I was a facilitator. And that was the most exciting thing with these inmates, closed into a room, no guards, just us, who we can talk man stuff. The last point I want to make, I think is really crucial, is that as men, we don't love ourselves. When I talk to students, let me ask you a question. Your name, sir? Winston. Winston, question for you. Who is the one most important person in your life that you value and love the most right now? Who's that person?
I would say my dad.
Okay, why is that? Your dad. Why is
So
that?
Winston says dad. Okay.
Yeah, why that? Why is that?
I say my dad because, the things that I seen him. I would say my father because the things that I've seen him done over the years, as far as raising me and, giving me the love and the support and stuff like that. So I would say my father.
Okay, and that's a good answer. I sometimes get my kids, whatever, but we can say Winston, that is not the best answer. What do you think is the best answer? You want me to give you the answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
You. You've got to love you. If you don't love yourself, how am I going to relate to a young brother who's in trouble or who is lost, as you mentioned, or scared or alone? You've got to love this first, which means you're going to get your certificate at the EOC, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a job, or you're going to find brothers like Carl here to use his shoulders to articulate your concern. And this goes back to, again, telling stories. If you don't love this, now I was a single dad for 10 years. Can I get an amen?
Amen, folks.
All right.
Yeah.
And my daughter's doing well, thank you very much. But still, I wasn't a good dad. No one taught me how to be a good dad, a good father. Now, thank God they're doing okay. But think about those lives out there, men who need to be touched and talked to, or if anything, taught to love themselves. Once you begin loving this, it isn't about academic success, financial success, emotional success, even spiritual success in a holistic fashion. We got a lot to do.
So can I share something? Because
I want to touch on that too, though. So if you're going to divert from it,
no, it's an actual.
If y'all don't know, if you're any sports players, we play wide receiver and defensive back. So I don't know how we became good friends. So if y'all see us going back and forth, sometimes it's just we go back to the football field. I'm sorry, and I'm the better one.
Every time he brings this up, I got to tell you that I'm undefeated. But no, so the reason why I want to touch on that, because this is very important for me, two things. When I would get Father's Day cards, or I would feel ashamed. Or when people would say, "You're a good father," and I'd be like, "I don't even think my kids love me." I felt this inward, like I wasn't deserving of being called a good dad for years. And I felt like an imposter. Like in my professional world, you hear of imposter syndrome in business. But as a dad, I'm like, you don't know. We're very vulnerable on the show, me and Carlos. And it wasn't until I turned 40. I know I look 25, but trust me, I'm a little bit older, all right? That I looked in the mirror and I said, you know what? For the first time, I love who I see. Changed everything. Changed the way I showed up in a relationship. Changed the way my kids got to see me. Because I was able to show up differently in front of my children. It changed the way I looked at the entire world, right? And it even changed us starting the podcast, because until I said that, I wasn't able to be I didn't want to be seen by somebody else, because I literally didn't know I didn't even love myself. That's the part. I didn't even know, right? So, I mean, just to add to that, that's very profound, close.
And I'll say that I don't even know if I'm there yet. I don't even know if I'm there yet.
Oh, it's starting.
And I say that because what Dr. Wilson said and what Carl just alluded to earlier, I remember talking with my therapist, and I believe it's a safe space, and I had to be taught that it's okay to speak to a therapist. And I remember him asking me the question, do you love yourself? And I said, this is my answer. I said, I like me. I'm pretty dope. But do I love me? Because if I loved me, I would treat myself like I love me. And so in that moment, I couldn't answer the question. And to this point, I still, as much as the world sees me, I still can't say I'm there.
Oh, I am. I'm awesome. Make no jokes about it. You see it. Come on now.
If I can make a quick point, thank you. I tell dads when I talk to them, your children are watching you right now. How you resolve conflicts, how you handle challenges, how you make decisions, and how you get mad. And the way you react to challenges, your kids are watching you to see it, because they're learning from you. And sometimes as men, we get angry, we get frustrated, we start throwing things. I've seen this happen, breaking things, and the kids are watching, because we're indirectly training them how to resolve conflicts. And it goes back to my own, emotional well-being. Emotional well-being for our men is mission critical. Because right now, if we can't handle our emotional well-being, seeing a therapist, or going to a safe space, telling your story, being accountable, I tell my students, the world wants results, not excuses. Period.
Yeah.
Challenges.
Yeah. I want to bring Ben into this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I love the point that we're making about loving yourself. And in preparation for this, trying to think about or consider what I think the difference between a positive version of masculinity and a more toxic, negative version of masculinity is.
Please.
And truly, I think the difference that allows one to have a positive version of masculinity as opposed to the opposite is self-esteem, right? And it is loving yourself. And self-esteem, so here, the definitions, right, of both of those as I see them, the positive version of masculinity, it's being compassionate, it's being empathetic, it's being patient, it's being kind, right? It's being strong, but it's being strong for what purpose? It's being strong to protect those who cannot protect themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Taking care of the vulnerable, like being that type of leader and man, right? The negative version of masculinity, again, as I see it, is dominating, right? Trying to impose your will on people, misogyny, these types of things. And how does one become that way as opposed to the other way? And it's self-esteem, right? And it's not just, the bravado that's associated with the dominance of the negativity, that all comes from a place of self-loathing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you know yourself and you have a self-actualized version of self-esteem, right?
Sure.
That comes from really having been reflective and understanding yourself and knowing yourself and then loving yourself, then you're not insecure. And insecurity is what breeds all of those negative behaviors, right?
Sure.
So if I'm insecure and I don't know if I don't love myself and I don't know how to love myself and I don't know who I really am, how am I going to feel more secure? I'm going to feel more secure by trying to dominate people, by being combative, by all of those negative, kind of behaviors that we associate with that toxic masculinity. So
Yeah.
finding a way to get to know yourself and then accepting and loving who you are allows you to have that security to not be threatened by strong women or not be threatened by people who you think are taking from you, all of these things, right?
Yeah.
So it starts with what Dr. Wilson says.
So I want to connect it, right? Because we talked about talking about your feelings. And I think, and the reason I push back is I know when our listeners are listening, that's the first roadblock, right? Feelings, has a soft thing to it. But when we expand on that and we get into this level of emotional intelligence, you said it's self-awareness, right? Learning who I am, right? That's going to kind of be foundational to how I'm going to show up as a man. The ability to express what I am actually feeling. So it's really about the ability to express this. And you learn expression through modeling of your parents' behavior, right? And then it becomes a moment of first accepting who you are and loving who you are, faults and all. There is no level of perfection. That's this level of, if we had a minister here, giving yourself grace, right? And then now you can go out there, and the definition of a man is dictated by you now. How you show up is a man. Is that making sense? Am I connecting this a little bit?
Yeah, one issue that I think is important to elaborate on that is, I teach my students, especially men, the world needs visionaries. What is your vision? What does that even mean? Where do you see yourself within 5 years, whatever? But as a visionary, that gives you the motivation to put together an action plan to get there. Many of our men don't have a vision. Or they want to be in the NBA, or they want to play in the NFL, or they begin making choices they know they're never going to get. But to have aspirations and a vision is so critical right now for our men who don't know how to be a visionary. Or they get so lost in the circle. It's like the crab in a barrel analogy.
Yeah.
If your crab tries to try to claw out, or the claw pulls you right back in.
Sure.
And you're pulled back into the mix of indecision and stress and frustration, and your vision just goes down. So whenever I see students now, I challenge them, what is your vision? Why are you here? What do you want? And those are questions that many of our men never get answered. Because no one has ever challenged them before to articulate their vision, have a conversation, and feel okay and confident that it's good to share.
Yeah.
Because as men, we have to share, we have to tell our story and be open to feedback and information that's going to make me become a visionary.
Everyone has a story to tell, right?
Let me
Go
say
ahead.
this too, because you said something really good, especially with the questions, because I've heard a statement, the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions that you ask yourself. Right?
Say that again, Los.
The
Louder. Get the mic in there. Say that loud.
The quality of your life is based upon the quality of the questions that you ask yourself.
Does that make sense to the
Like,
audience?
What kind of questions are you asking yourself? And you don't have to always have the answer. But when you ask yourself a question, this beautiful computer that we were blessed with tries to come up with the answer. So I want to ask a question that may lead us down to a road, because we're talking about how to be a man in the 21st century. And unfortunately, there are a lot of men or young men who don't have a father or a model. So what do you do with the young man who's being raised by a mother who was also raised by a mother? I'm going to say that again. What do you do with the young man who's being just raised by a mother with no father figure, and that mother only had a mother? So she doesn't even have a design of a father to be able to teach this young man. How are we teaching him, and where is he getting it from? Because my sons, they have me. My daughters, they have me. And they have access to other men who are around me. But I'm noticing, I know you gentlemen notice, there are a lot of men who don't have it. I ran to a McDonald's, and I'll let us answer this question. Last week, young man who was in a facility that I used to work in long time ago. He saw me and said, man, I didn't know then, but I know now. He said, you're one of the realest men I've ever known. And then he said this, probably in his late 20s, I'm trying to figure this thing out, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. He has no father figure. The young man who has a mother doesn't have a father, and she only had a mother. How are we training this young man? What does he do?
Before you men jump on that, I'm going to make this a little bit more complex. So I have your permission to do that? The hidden assumption you're saying is to be a man, you need to see it from another man. But what I heard from the panel was to be a man, you need to first understand who you are as a human being, love yourself as that human being, have the skills to articulate yourself as a human being, have a vision for yourself as a human being, and your very presence makes you a man.
I push back on that.
Well, let them push back. I made it a little bit more complex.
I don't agree
This is
with
what
that.
I do.
I don't agree with that. And it's okay to disagree, because I don't think you can be a young man. I don't think you can be a man without seeing a man.
Well, we got a couple of doctors here, a couple of trained experts here. Let them talk.
It's got to be both. I mean, I'll just be very plain. It's got to be both. We need positive male role models, period. And, you know, I've worked as a social worker with at-risk youth since 15, 20 years ago, at detention, in the courts, in the schools, in homeless
We
shelters.
got to hear you. Put that a little closer because you're dropping
Sorry,
some stuff.
I talk low.
Yeah. Trying to be smooth.
And
Our different
listen,
version of Barry White.
young men who have experienced the type of upbringing that you're referring to, they are starving for positive male role models. You can just see it. And I've spent decades with the young men that you're talking about, and they're every fiber of their being is crying out for positive male role models. And they're everywhere. They're here. But we have to be present. We have to be available. We have to be vulnerable.
Sure.
And listen, I'm a social worker. I talk about feelings, right? That's what I do for a living. That's what I went to school to learn how to do. I still feel threatened when I'm being vulnerable. Right now, sitting here, right? The
That's
feelings,
deep.
all of the anxiety,
Knowing everything
fight
you
or
know.
flight, cortisol popping off in my head. I mean, it feels every single time. Doesn't stop, right?
Yeah.
Like,
That's powerful.
so being able
is.
to demonstrate that and give those young men or any men a space where they listen, how many times do they just got to cry? How many times do they just need to cry and they have not been given the opportunity to do so? And I know you've seen it. When it does come out, it's just like everything, man. It's not just the one thing, right? It's like everything comes out. I'm sorry, I'm going back to, yeah, thank you, man. So
No.
I have three little men who live in my house, and you know, like this responsibility of putting them out into the world as good people who are going to feel comfortable in their own skin and who are going to, again, be good people and have the resilience to navigate whatever the future holds. It's such an awesome responsibility, and I'm bouncing all over the place here.
No, but what you said was
I
powerful.
think you hit on. Yeah.
Come on.
So what I want to do is actually, and I'm going to give a little props to Dr. Wilson, but mentoring. We talk about mentoring as being a means of helping young men who don't have, say, that father figure, to have someone to use as a model. And I know the Men of Merit program, which Dr. Wilson worked with at ECC, I had a little involvement with, was one of those types of programs. We have many other programs. We have Breaking Barriers here in Buffalo. Breaking Barriers is a well-known program. It does great work working with youth. And so you want to talk more about Men of Merit and what that was doing?
Yeah, so when I was at ECC, we put in place, actually it was there, they were
So
there
for our
for 10
audience,
years.
EEC is what?
Erie Community College, SUNY
right.
Erie.
Yep, perfect.
Okay. So Men of Merit was designed specifically to make sure men were empowered with the skill set, motivations, integrity to be competitive and marketable after they graduate. To do that was also the mentoring component that Carl and I worked with. And that was important because, I mean, for example, a few months ago, I was in the hospital for a procedure, and when I came out of the procedure, my nurse came to my bedside. It was one of my students. I said, "What are you doing here?" He's a nurse now because his mentor was a nurse. Now he's a nurse at ECMC. I couldn't be more proud. So when we train brothers to be mentors, we tell them there's a young person waiting in the Buffalo Public Schools who needs a male mentor right now. So not only are we giving you a mentor, we're training you like you're an apprentice mentor.
Yeah.
So it goes full circle in a good way. So the mentorship component is so important for men right now because they need someone with strong shoulders, someone to challenge them, someone to give them a leg up in the workforce. and give them the skills that they need so when they graduate, they're there. I have another student real quick who's going to dental school this fall. His mentor's my dentist. And, I mean,
Yeah.
he failed the MCAT twice. He called me crying. He said, man, yeah, go to and my dentist is an African-American male. They bonded real quick. So now he passed the MCAT. He's going to medical school this fall. He called me screaming and said, hey, okay, I knew you could do it. But mentorship is key for our men right now because we still need men out there who can challenge us, empower us, open that door so we can walk through it. Because many of our men are afraid to walk through that door.
Yeah.
They're afraid to have their emotions challenged. They're afraid to even communicate with someone. So as mentors, you know what? Guess what? The expectation has now gone real high for you. And if I'm your mentor, don't mess around. Because I had to drop, no, you're not ready for a mentor. There's a small little Likert scale I have called simply, are you ready for a mentor? That was a Likert scale that I put together, and what it did was it allowed a dialogue between myself, the mentor, and the student. Are you ready for that responsibility for a mentor? Because I'm committed. If I'm your mentor, I'm with you for the long haul. But guess what? Be on time. Be focused. Pull your pants up. Wash your face. Comb your hair. I mean, that's how deep this goes. So we keep pushing the mentoring piece as being so vital for our men, period. Especially in professions where there are not a lot of men.
Yeah.
So that's always going to be one of our big mainstays. And when I was at Men of Merit, we were able to institutionalize our mentoring program, which is still there.
I want to go back to something Ben said. You want to chime in, Ben?
Just real quick, responding to your last comment, Rod. I mean, what you described, what we were talking about, and then, the positive male role model aspect. It's just the difference is we're talking about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, right?
Yeah.
So, it's got to come from inside you,
Sure.
but it also has to come from the outside as well. You have to be able to see those things. You got to see bad examples and good examples.
Yeah.
But then you can't get to the place where you really want to be unless it comes from the inside, I would say.
So this is something you said, and I love making connections. That's my role, right? You mentioned that you and your resume is impressive. I encourage all of you, go on LinkedIn, look up Ben. This is his life's calling. And working with at-risk youth and young youth, people that have been incarcerated to some extent. And this is tying you, and you notice that they're starving to identify, because when we say positive male role model, we're looking for, I need to see someone that looks like me, that is evidence that I can do it too, right? But in that, you mentioned some of them just need a good cry, right? And so this is where it's making sense to me with the expressing your feelings, two states, I'm fine and I'm mad. But really, the reason why we need, and this goes back to your thing, need to see a man because I identify with a man, right? So if I see this man able to do this, it now makes it more tangible and reachable, and I'll stretch towards it to some extent. That's very profound to me.
Yeah, so in the 21st century, I think I hear saying, and I'm saying this in all seriousness, is that as a man, you are called to be a father to your children that you have, but also to others. I've noticed that for my own self that it's not enough just to be a father to my own children. It's not enough.
Yeah.
And as Ben stated, it's an awesome responsibility. So I have my sons, I have my daughters, they have me in their life, but there are other young men who are screaming out for attention. When I worked at a detention center, I remember a young man going home and he would get into all this trouble all the time. But when he was at the facility, he was fine. I mean, he was a little edgy. And I asked him, I like statistics, but I love one-on-one data. I said, why do you go home and act up? He said, because here y'all have structure for me. And when I go home, they don't. So to Ben's point, they're looking for structure. We have a mentoring program, myself and my business owner, confidence and conditioning. We get the young fellas in, we talk to them for about a half an hour about the mental component. We take them on the other half of the gym because we're inside of our gym, and we work them out. I can't tell you the smiles and the joy after we work them.
Yeah.
We work them out, and they come back because they want to come back. because they like the actual structure that they're being given.
One more thing, Ben. I know you want to jump in. I want to connect one thing you said again, and the mentoring, because you talked about mentoring them for going out into the world. But as a man, if you don't know how to express yourself, how can you teach your son how to express themselves?
Oh, for sure.
There's the mentoring them in terms of emotional management as well. I just want to tie that in, but go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just, an earlier point, like the vision that Dr. Wilson described, the vision doesn't come, you can't have a vision unless you've seen something, right? So that's where the mentorship and the positive example that people set comes from, because in order to do it, you got to have seen it. You have to have some sense of what's possible. Right?
Yeah.
And then I want to ask you a question, just based on what you were just saying. Like, when you're out in the world, you're at the playground or wherever. I don't know how old your kids are, but do you have the experience where other children will come up and start talking to you like you're a person in their lives?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
For sure. And when it first happened, it was before I had my children and with my nephews. And so I would go to school with them. One of my nephews, he was getting to some stuff, and we have a family. We have a lot of young men don't have. So they called us all together. We all sat down with the therapist, with the person from school, and listened to them as a family. It was about 10 of us in there. And they were suggesting some things, and some things we were like, no, we're not doing that. And some things we were like, yes, we will. And I started going. So we picked days when one of us would just show up. And what I noticed, Ben, when I went to show up for my nephew, other young men would gravitate.
It's like they can tell, right?
They could tell, and they'd be like,
Yeah.
like, look at me, look at what I'm doing. You always get it every time, and I would intentionally give them attention as well. But that was the first time I noticed it, and it caught me aback. I was like, wait a minute.
My wife and my kids, they all know. They know. Like,
Yeah.
whenever I'm out, other kids are going to come up
Yep.
and start talking
Yeah.
to me. And
Yeah.
it's
Like
just
the
because
dad.
They can just tell. They just
Yes.
know that you're like a person who's going to be safe and, that
Wow.
they can relate to.
I want put a pin in it, because when we wrap up, I'm going to talk about this. You use the key word. They look at you as someone that is safe.
Yes, I heard
Not
that
just
too.
safe to approach, but you
Safe.
bring safety.
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
another thing we have to say the responsibility of a man is, and what that embodies is you still have to provide some level of safety. I don't want to stay there, though. But I do want to take this to, go ahead, Carl.
I was actually going to kind of go in a bit of a different direction.
Let's do it.
For a hot minute. So, like I said, my background is from therapy, counseling, and all so forth. So also, in the context of being a man, we got to take care of ourselves. Right?
What does that mean?
Like
What
you
does
and
that
I
mean?
Well, you and I were talking beforehand, so,
Sure.
And it does tie in still to the idea of feelings and emotions, but if they're bottled up, many times, if you don't take care of yourself, they'll manifest in ways that are unfavorable.
Talk
And,
about that.
Well, it could be drug use, it could be alcohol use, it could be a lot of things, anger, right?
Emotional abuse.
Emotional abuse. The one term they use now is intimate partner violence, not domestic violence, but
Hold
intimate
on, hold
partner
on, hold on,
violence.
hold on. I never heard this before.
He went over that speed bump real fast,
He's like,
right?
one thing to have is intimate.
Come on,
no,
Carl, we
say it
gotta-
loud. Speak it to the mic, man, because that's a powerful term right there.
So there's another word for domestic violence, another term called intimate partner violence.
Oh, wow.
Because basically it takes it out of the context. When you think of domestic violence, you often think of a man against a woman. But basically, it can go either way. There are instances where women will abuse men. And it's true,
Wow.
believe it or not. So, but what I'm saying, though, is that we have to learn how to take care of ourselves. If you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of somebody else? It's the whole idea of the oxygen mask. I'm sure we've heard the oxygen mask
Yes.
analogy where you put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then you help the person next to you. So the way I look at it, all these things we're talking about here, if you love yourself, you take care of yourself.
And I know, Dr. Wilson, you're going to say something, but Carl, I want to push you a little bit on that. Because I say this, and I've done this in the front of the room. We heard that oxygen mask thing. We all have children. You have children, Carl? Yeah. So we all have children. If I'm on a plane and we're struggling for oxygen, it's going to be hard for me to put my mask on and watch my son.
Not me.
That's why they tell you to do it.
You know what I'm saying? But that's because I'm not saying I wouldn't, but when you really think about that with your own boys, you watching I think the natural tendency of a good father is let me get him good first. So I think I don't think it's easy to do. I 100%
I'm not saying it's
agree
easy.
with what
I'm
you're
not
saying.
saying it's easy. No.
Yes.
No, but what I'm saying, though, is that in the context of being a father, being a man, we got to take care of ourselves. And that's what I'm saying. So often we don't do that.
Yeah.
Because there are so many things out there that serve as distractions, diversions, unhealthy behaviors that exist that will basically take a person out real fast if they don't watch themselves.
Carl, you said, if you love yourself, you take care of yourself. But also, if you take care of yourself, it becomes easier to love yourself too, right? It's like,
Ben, you so soft-spoken, man.
Stop.
Smoothest brother I ever met. Say this again.
I can hear him. He's saying some deep stuff.
Did everyone hear what he
I
said?
can hear Ben right here.
All right, we got people back there that didn't hear you.
And then
You
Dr.
said-
Wilson has something too.
Yeah.
Carl said, if you love yourself, then you take care of yourself. But if you take care of yourself, it becomes easier
to love yourself.
So
Wow.
it's a self-fulfilling cycle.
And
So-
if you love yourself, like we said before, when Winston, for example, you're going to eat well, you're going to sleep well, you're going to
Come on, Dr.
get
Wilson.
proper treatment, you're going to connect with those people in your world who are going to help you. And back to Ben's point about having a role model, we need more men who are leaders.
Yeah.
So when I talk to a young man, you, my friend, are going to be a future leader. You're going to get that certificate, you're going to get that college degree, you're going to change your life, which means that we need to see more men in positions of leadership. We're not there. We're not in the classroom, we're not in the colleges, because we see young men who have good aspirations, but no one is saying to them, asking them the question, where do you want to go in your life? What do you want? What is your, back to being a visionary once again, but tell me your plans. And plan, what does that mean, plan? Maybe they're just not really ready yet,
Yeah.
but now's the time to really jump on that and grab them and say, now guess what? When I talk to students, it's so funny, I'm a counselor here, when I talk to students, and some of them are adult, well, they're all adult learners, of course, some are struggling. When I say, I'm your counselor, you belong to me now. Guess what happens? I get a smile, I get a laugh.
I'll probably feel
You
uncomfortable.
belong to me now.
I'll probably feel uncomfortable.
That's
if you
the
said that to
Caribbean
me.
in you.
Yeah.
See, calm it down.
Yeah, I'm like,
calm it down.
what?
Calm down.
And they
calm
needed
down.
to hear that. They need to hear that someone cares about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's
Yes.
going to hold them accountable.
Yes.
Because in their world, back to your earlier point, that's not happening. No one's showing me that I need to improve my life, be more disciplined, talk to people I need to talk to. They're not being challenged.
I'm just gonna, may I?
You good, Ben? You good?
I'm so glad Carl brought up the self-care component, because it's just, in order to be a good father, good man, good leader,
Yes.
right? You have to show up as your best self all the time. You cannot be your best self if you're not taking care of yourself. And how do you take care of yourself?
I was about to ask you that.
It starts with positive habits, right? It's all about habits. Like, you have to establish a series of habits and routines and things that you do for yourself that allow you to be the best version of yourself.
Give us
as much as
examples.
possible. Well, it depends. It's different for every person. But,
Give us any.
it's exercise, sleep, nutrition, as Dr. Wilson said.
Sure.
Whatever works for you.
Gotcha.
Whatever allows you to feel like you are the best version of yourself, the healthiest, most, mentally well version of yourself. And for me, it took a long time to determine and establish what those habits would be. Thank you for commenting on my resume, but I wouldn't be here if I didn't have an education, but I didn't have an education until I was 32 years old. I didn't get a bachelor's degree. And there's a long journey to get to that point.
Yeah.
And a lot of that journey was marked by not having the type of habits that were going to allow me to be successful, right? And when I began to start to learn how, what I needed, what my body needed, what my mind needed in order to be the best version of myself, and started establishing those routines and establishing those habits and kind of reinforcing those habits, my whole life just got easier, man. Like, and there's an analogy that I'll reference now, but that I actually understood in real time as I felt like my life was changing, and it was being in a stream and going with the current and not going upstream, not trying to fight against the current, right? So once you establish those habits and once you start to really learn about yourself and what you need in order to start becoming successful, things just get easier. You just start going with the flow.
One thing I want to dovetail on what you're saying there, but you mentioned a term earlier that folks may or may not know, and that's cortisol. So cortisol, anyone know what cortisol is?
I tried to pretend like I did, but
Yeah, so
no.
cortisol is a stress hormone. It's released from the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland is right next to the kidneys. So basically, when we are under major stress, or we might be in a dangerous situation, or the adrenaline is flowing, right? Adrenal. So basically, it's what creates that fight or flight type of, or even freeze response. When we're in this state of fight or flight, constantly, it wears down our body, it wears down our mind, it wears down our system, and it will then also manifest in mental, physical, emotional impacts. So basically, the self-care piece is how you mitigate the problems you might have with this cortisol. You can reduce cortisol through things like exercise, meditation, proper sleep, right? Because if you were under this state of hypervigilance, which many of our young men are,
Right.
how are you ever going to be able to maintain your physical mental health over time? It's going to wear you out.
I heard a therapist once say it's like trying to ask somebody a question while they're running from a dog. They're running for their lives from a dog that's chasing them, and you're like, hey, tell me how's your day going? Or how are you feeling right now?
Just to really, really reinforce that point that Carl made, because it's cortisol, but it will make you physically sick. It
Yeah.
will give you cancer. It literally manifests itself in your body and puts you in the hospital. And that's from being scared. Being scared can and will make you physically sick.
Yeah.
And kill you.
So
Crazy.
So again, I always give you a scenario, right? Because again, I'm practical. Everything we say, I agree with 100%. But I also got to represent the community that looks like me, or the men out there that, the truckers, the cab drivers, the Uber drivers. My mother worked 12 hours a day for 30 years, right? My father the same. How do we create bad habits, good sleep, where I still got to go out there and perform? This is what the conversation is, right? I'm gonna bring it back to that. There's people out there that have to perform. That my mother commutes, used to, she's retired now, an hour and a half each way to go to work. I live in the city. It's an hour and 20-minute drive to my office every day, right?
I mean, it sounds real simple and uniform, right?
Yeah.
Like, just get sleep, eat well, right? Okay, so you can't afford healthy food. You got to work 16 hours, 20 hours a day. How
Yeah,
you going to
let's
sleep?
talk practicality.
So it is. I mean, but it is individual and unique to every
Sure.
person. And you got to. We're talking about equity now, right? Like, it's not an even playing field. We have to accept that right from
Yeah.
the jump. But for every person, there's opportunities to find ways to take care of yourself that are different, and it might be small things. It's a very good point that you're making, right? Not everybody's going to go to bed and get 8 hours of sleep. Not everybody's going to get 3 square meals. Not everybody's going to have a gym membership. Not everybody's going to have an exercise bike or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's why it has to be very intentional, and that's why there needs to be spaces and there needs to be people who can help find ways
Yeah.
for people who have limited resources or less opportunity to be able to take care of themselves, to start taking those steps to improve their situation, right? So it's all coming first. So, like, providing that space,
Yeah.
providing the professionals or the peers or the people who know how to help people find those opportunities for themselves, like creating those
Yeah.
spaces and those opportunities.
And Los, I'm 30 seconds, Los. I love what you said, because there is intentionality. Because the reality of it is and I talk to myself because I work a grueling schedule as someone who owns 3 companies. It's, if I don't, the consequences can be dire. So no matter what situation I am in, I have to make the intentional decision. So go ahead.
And that's
Los.
what I was just going to lead to
Yeah.
for practicality. For those who are watching, those who are in the room, you have to have the intention to do it.
Yeah.
The excuse of I don't have enough time is not a valid excuse. Because there are a lot of people who are watching and they just want to give you an excuse. Oh, I don't have time, or I work too much, or I don't have enough money. You have to start. I'll bring this in the practical space of I'm also a personal trainer. I hear it all the time. I don't have enough time to work out. But like you said, okay, sooner or later, the body that you're using to do all these things is not going to be able to do all these things. So give me one day a week.
Yeah.
And give me 30 minutes out of that one day. So what I say that is, you can't tell me you don't have 30 minutes of one day. And once you start doing that, to what Ben stated earlier, as in taking care of yourself, it gets easier because you add the one day a week, and maybe it's 3 months from now. I'm not saying tomorrow. Maybe it's 3 months from now. You say, you know what? I want to add another day. But you had the intent to do that. And when you have the intent to do that, whatever level of life that you're on, if you make that time, you'll start to see things open up for yourself. And again, don't make the time. And the body that's doing everything is going to fail you, and you won't be able to do all the stuff that you're trying to have time for.
So,
One other thing I want to talk about too, and this is also kind of not an abstract topic, but the idea of potential. So potential is becoming the best person we can be. That's what we're talking about here, right? And I think what it comes down to is loving yourself, taking care of yourself. That's allowing us to become the best person that we can be. Not the best person that, someone else wants us to be, that we can be for ourselves.
say that again. Not being
the best person that someone else wants us to be,
Yeah.
but who we want to be for ourselves. Because, like, you might be in a world where we all have demands, we all have, things that people want us to do and whatever, but we have to look at ourselves and be accountable to ourselves. And I know for myself, if I set standards for myself and I kind of push myself toward those standards, when I meet them, I can even go further. There's in other words, when you talk about potential, there's really no end to potential. It's ongoing.
I want to share quick, because I want to piggyback off of what you both said. And Carlos and I always share our personal stories. With Black Dad, we never give you an answer. We just keep having dialogue. So Ben and I share this. I have 3 children. All my kids are athletes. And
Your kids' only kids are athletes up here?
well,
You see the shade? I'm going to let you ride. I'm going to let you ride. You're a wide receiver. I'm going to let you live.
okay. But the truth is, I worked 2 jobs, right? I worked with a, Fortune 100 company, and I was also a professor. But then I coached all of their sports. I drove them to school every day. I picked them up every day. And after maybe 5-6 years of this, my body broke down and I got seriously ill, right? And then I said, you know what? We won't be able to do all of these sports because I literally physically can't do this anymore. Hardest thing in the world was to tell my kids, I can't take you to softball no more. You won't be able to do it. Because as a man, as a father, I want your dreams to come true. And as I've modeled, it does not matter what happens to me as long as your dreams come true.
And that was false.
And that was false.
Okay.
Right? Because that's what I saw.
Right.
That's what I saw. Again, for those who follow, I'm a Haitian man. This is what I saw. And this is what I knew. The more I'm willing to break myself down for you is the greater love I have for you. And at that moment, when I'm faced with death, I said, I can't do this. And emotionally, it ripped me apart. Because I want to do this. I can't. And it became Saturdays or the days where Dad's just going to sleep. I think I sold one of my companies. I'm going to sleep. I have days of rest. Now I'm at a point where I'm like, and those who know me, I have days where I just watch cartoons. I said, this is my cartoon time. I call it my decompression time. I'm dead serious. I got decompression because I realized I'm no good dead. I'm no good mentally impaired. To those who are counting on me, the best thing I can do is actually make sure that I'm still available, right? As athletes, right? The best ability is availability, right? And so I always give the practical on, I live this, right? I literally live this with my life. And I said, okay, let's go back. That's why it hit me so hard because people always ask me, how did it happen? I don't know, but I think it's stress. I think the stress got to me.
I think if someone asked me, based on our topic today, what is it like to be a man in the 21st century? My answer is, one of them anyway, we have to become self-advocates. If you advocate for yourself, you're going to love yourself. You'll get that role model, get that mentor. You'll go to, like we've been saying all the morning, if you advocate for yourself, you're going to take care and love yourself. But we've got to teach men how to become self-advocates.
Yeah.
So when you start a task or start a journey, you stay on the pathway to success till you get it completed, because if you advocate for yourself, only the best will do based on your circumstances.
Yeah.
But you've got to become a self-advocate.
And I'll just say on that, I'll keep it brief, but I have to say it. 100% speak up. I have 2 men in my life who are no longer living, who probably would still be living if they spoke up. I don't know the future, and I can't judge your actions or your life, but I have 2 men in my life who are both younger than me, who would still be living, probably, if they spoke up. So I say that for men in the room, men watching, speak up. It's not weakness. We've talked about that on one of our episodes. It's actually strength to be able to speak up and say when you're going through something. 9.8 times out of 10, another man is probably going to identify with what you're going through. And a lot of times, I won't say a lot of times, it's also men who appear to be strong. It's not just the men who you see it. Check on your strong friend. That's what somebody tells me. Me and my brothers have a text message group. I won't say their names, but there are days we wake up to a text message, pick the phone up. I'm messing this up, bro. I'm jacking this thing up. Man, I can't figure this thing out. I'm talking about men who are married, successful, children are in college, wife is doing well, kids are doing well, $700,000-$800,000 home, 2 cars in the garage, all the stuff. But still feel like I'm not doing this. Speak up. A man left to himself will implode or explode. A man left to himself will implode or explode. And a lot of times that implosion is our health. And I'll say this, and we can go wherever you want to wrap it up or ask questions. I work in the space of health as well. And so I see a lot of men who are overweight. If I hit you, I ain't trying to miss you.
I hear what you're doing. I see. You can look at me. You can look at me and say it.
I see a lot of men. And again, you don't have to be on the cover of a magazine. I'm extreme. You don't have to be extreme. Ben and I were talking offline, and we were saying, sometimes you work out just as a de-stressor. There's some days I may work out 3 times in the same day. It ain't because I want to work out. It's because I ain't got to listen to nobody. I ain't got to hear no phone call, and I can let this stress go. Your body will take it on if you don't release it in some type of way. And your physical health is also something that you model to your children. Your children know what you are doing. I'm going to say this, go ahead. If I hit you, I ain't trying to miss you. A lot of your families don't suffer from high blood pressure. Y'all eating the same food.
Oh,
my grandfather, my father, yeah, leave the pork chops alone. They was like, it was some good topics, so you start talking about my food. So what I'm saying is take care of yourself, man.
Yeah.
I don't say what you got to eat, what you don't have to eat. I don't say you got to be in the gym 5 days a week, but you do need to be healthy for your children to be able to see you be healthy. And again, for your body to do all the things you want this body to do.
Just a quick neurological, the cortisol that Carl was talking about, chemical. Your body produces it, makes you sick. The dopamine, the serotonin that you get from exercise.
Can you hear him?
Another chemical, right?
Yeah.
Like their body creates chemicals based on your experience that make you sick. Your body also creates chemicals that are basically good mood feeling drugs, okay? And you get those. They combat the cortisol, and they make you feel better, and they give you well-being, and they give you confidence, and you get those from exercise. So it's not about how you look; it's about how you feel.
Right.
It's just taking a walk. You don't have to go, you don't have to
Walk.
be Carlos. Take a walk.
Carlos or Rod.
That's it, man. Or Rodney. That's right. That's right. I'm sorry. I just wanted to.
No, that's a
get
good point, because some people think you got to be in the gym all day. Go walk around the park.
So I do want to, because I want to open up for questions.
Yes.
We talked about safe space, and I know you work in this particular environment of creating safe spaces. So I do want to give some opportunity to talk about what programs that the Buffalo Education Opportunity Center, located at 555 Ellicott Street in Buffalo, New York, has for. Carlos has 4 brothers. Not everybody has a brother, and some people don't have a father. No, what's out there to create space for them?
Thank you, Rodney. I wasn't really expecting to do a pitch, but real quick, the Buffalo EOC, I've got Stan Quia and Eva Lise over there, who are admissions counselors. I saw them walking around speaking to all of you folks individually, which I appreciate. Thank you both. But the EOC's been here for over 50 years, providing free educational vocational training programs. We are an open door. That is by definition what we are. Anybody is welcome to come into the EOC at any time looking for help, and we will do our best to help them. So we have programs for all people, right? We have programs that are more traditionally careers that women pursue in allied health fields, but we have many men who pursue those as well. We now have programs in the trades as well, in construction. We have 2 programs. One prepares folks for union apprenticeships, which is just a whole other career opportunity that just changes people's lives. And we have all sorts of other opportunities. We do GED, we do ESL for folks who are trying to learn English, academic review programs. If you're trying to improve your life, If you are looking for a safe place, if you are looking for people who wake up every day with the intention on helping other people, you come to the OC. We'll do what we can for you.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can
So
I,
I'm going to put the mic in the middle.
Michael, while you saying that, can I say, women, we need y'all? Was it James Brown? Thank you. James Brown said, it's a man's world. Wouldn't mean nothing.
All right.
Woman or girl.
You're doing this again to me, right?
I'm sorry. You putting the mic up.
I'm about to start
We
singing too.
need y'all. All right. I love my mama. I love my daughters. I was raised by some strong black women. And this program itself was actually put together in great detail with Associate Executive Director, Dr. Debbie Thompson, who's also here. Can we give her a hand?
Dr. Thompson, round of applause, please.
Yes. It wouldn't be done if she wasn't there. We'd probably be outside with no microphones.
If you think you're lonely now.
Wait So Dr. Debbie Thompson, who works here also, Associate Executive Director here at EOC, thank you so much for everything that you did behind the scenes, which also we're going to segue into a future program we're going to have with men and women that we're going to do on June 28th. But anything before we go to the questions?
No, I want to go to the questions.
Okay.
So I don't know if anybody in the audience has any questions, if you're still deep in thought. No pressure.
Yes, but we want you to come to the mic because we want you to be heard once we post this. We want to make sure that the people who are listening hears your question. A lot of times when you're asking a question, many other people have the same question on their mind. So I want to make room for that. Anybody wants to come ask a question to any other panelists up here, or if it's just something you want to kind of toss out there, feel free.
All right. If we don't have anyone, I do want to hit Carl up. You have a question, brother? Let's rock and roll. Even you know what's funny? Even in asking that, I know people are taking notes. I know people are thinking things, but still, as a man, you got a question?
Yeah.
Right? It's still beautiful.
It's still, yeah. I hear exactly what you're saying, and I want to tie something in. I'll do it after the questions, though, that will tie into that space because I love what we said, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful responsibility as a man.
Yeah.
I'm growing to love even the pressures that come with being a man when you have it modeled right. So I'm gonna give something that alludes to what we need to do as a men too.
I guess it's more just of a comment. I think one of talking about like 21st century being a father and a man and touching on all the points of mentorship and role models, I think one of the biggest things that we have now problem-wise is social media. And a lot of role models and mentorship or what young men see growing up is not positive.
Yeah.
Growing up in a house with just a mother or no real positive father figure or man in the house, and then you're seeing rappers and all kind of things out in the street that's what you see, that's what you think is cool or normal of gang violence and partying, drugs, that I think is a huge problem that we have now with social media being so active, especially with children being so young and they're on iPads, on YouTube, and all day. That's what, hey, just here's an iPad. Go sit in the corner and don't bother me because I have to work, I have to clean, I have to cook, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Now you're, this is the result of, big problem that I see. Yeah. And then also, just not knowing, right? Like not knowing where to take your kids or not knowing where to go to get the help that you may need. You feel lost and stuck of, okay, I'm just gonna do the best that I can being a single parent or whatever. But I think a big help is, boys and girls clubs and, after school programs where we do have men in that, like yourselves that can come help and teach kids. I grew up going to Westside Community Center in Vermont I was around a bunch of other boys and men my age, had guys there that teach you how to play sports and, talk to you and have different programs there. So having those programs definitely do help. I think it's just getting more involved and then getting out to help the people that don't know where to go or how to get there or sign them up or get them involved is a big thing.
So I see you want to say, I want to chime in as I want to feed this in.
What's your name?
Michael.
I just wanted Mike to look at his name.
Michael, so
That's a great point.
You know what's funny that you said that, and I'm going to give you another context, right? Because I have a son, my namesake. I love my son, right? He's my first kid, and he grew up with me, and I have 3 degrees, and he grew up with my father. He grew up with both his parents because I was married for 20 years. My parents are married, and I still have to combat social media.
Yep.
I still have to fight the influence social media has. Because I'm thinking as a dad, and Carlton and I are Division I athletes who had full scholarships, right? If you go to the University of Buffalo, go to the back of the stadium, you'll see my name 3 times as a 3-time academic All-American.
Just your name again? You're not going to say my name?
Some of you have fitness, some of us got big brains. You know what I'm saying? But I say all that to say, you're right. I want to support what you're saying because it goes back to what we said. What looks reachable to them. And there's not many of us that show up as men, regardless of color, consistently enough for them to say, this is a better image than that image. My son my son tried to become a rapper, right? And I'm an entrepreneur. I expose him to everything, but still, that prevalent image, a dominating image in society was more attractive. Now, he's still a good kid. He's in college, and I'm becoming even more present, which is why we're having this. I realize I got to get rid of a few of these businesses because I will lose this boy if I'm not here cooking and him cooking with him, doing, right? So just wanted to tee that up. But, brother, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Michael.
That's a great point. I got some bullet points about Dr. Wilson.
So,
I want you to go.
I know, yeah, Dr. Wilson was chiming in.
One of my biggest, I'm glad you brought that up. One of my biggest frustrations, almost every day without fail, I see a young child, 3 years old, on an iPad playing a game,
Yes.
or the iPad becomes the babysitter. I mean, that's now part of our culture. And unfortunately, in my opinion, it's an accepted part of our culture.
Yeah, that's the tough
Now,
part.
what I do with my grandkids, when I'm with them, they're not on the iPads. We pull out Monopoly. We'll pull out all these games that require you to use some cognition.
Yes.
Because right now, the laptops or iPads they're thinking for the child, not vice versa.
Yeah.
So when I ever see a child, even at Walmart, maybe last night, I don't think maybe 2 or 3 years old, they're just hooked to something, playing a game.
See them in restaurants.
Where the restaurants too. Exactly.
Yep.
I mean, I don't like, when I see that, I get so, I feel like saying to the parent, let me grab you and wake you up here. Because your child is not being taught, the computer's teaching for the child, and now your development is becoming an issue.
Yeah.
Big time.
You know what's funny? Hold on. Sorry,
I
Lois.
said I was going to get bullet points. You see you see this?
Sorry, no.
Y'all
because
saw this, right?
My sister.
I hope you saw it.
My sister's in, because I just
Thank
want
you,
to support
Ben.
what he said.
Ben said
My
amen.
sister's in here. You know, on May 15th, she's going to become
got 30 seconds.
doctor,
Oh, yeah,
sister.
shout out to that.
She's going to get her PhD, and she's in this health space. She can attest. We had one television, deliberately. So whatever I watched had to be sensitive to the children. My son didn't get his own cell phone until he was like 17.
This is you, not your father.
This
is
is
you.
me.
Gotcha.
But my sister could attest is
Yeah.
I said my kids will only play board games. So for me, we learned to play every single board game because I was like, I cannot afford to have you, now this is me, as a person of color, lose critical thinking.
So, bullet points. I think that's a great bullet
Go
point
ahead.
because we always say we don't give answers and tell you what to do, but we give an information.
There you go.
You said you did that with your actual children. I remember back in my day. I sound so old when you say that now, right?
You are.
I look good though. I look good. Back in my
This
day.
is gym talk again. Go ahead.
See what you do?
I'm going to keep doing it.
All right. Back in my day, my mom would shut off a day and say, "No, we're just playing board games, and we're just listening to vinyl records." And I remember that moment almost like it was yesterday. I can remember how it feels. But 21st century, to your question, social media is a real thing. Bullet points, something I do with my children. My older ones have to do this, and younger ones do too. When they get on social media or something, you have to watch some of this video. I'll send them about 5 different people that I like, somebody they can watch. You got to watch 5 minutes of this before you watch with your stuff.
That's a great idea.
And then you got to come tell me about what you watched. So it's not that they can't do it and not that they won't, but I'm putting some parameters, some bullet points. This is something I do. But me and my children, when we walking, you're not on your phone. When we walking out of the car into the restaurant, put the phone away. When we're at the restaurant, you can't pull your phone out. So these are little parameters I put in place Like Dr. Wilson said, so you're not just I look up at my son, we walk. I said, boy, if you don't put that thing away and walk,
Listen,
we're walking.
let me tell
bullet
you.
point.
No, it's
Hold
not
up.
really-
No, I'm going to finish this one because you
Go ahead,
bullet
you
me.
finish.
You
You
bullet
finish.
me. You
No,
bullet
finish.
me. Another bullet point, get them involved in activities.
Yeah,
So my
man.
children's school, the thing I loved about their sports team is their coach didn't allow them to have their cell phones on the bus or on the way to the game. When we have our confidence and conditioning, the kids have to put the phones away. Now we make time for them to be on the phone. So we're still utilizing that time, but then we're putting the phone away for some time. So getting them into practice, like we said earlier, Dr. Wilson said, when you give them a structure, they actually abide to it.
Yeah,
When I've given my children this structure with the social media, they abide to it because somebody's guiding it and telling them,
That's a fair point.
you have to put this down, and when you do use it, here are some ways you can use it to actually benefit yourself.
One thing I used to do, I'm sorry to interrupt, that question. When I work with young men, period, the first thing we do, we have a handshake conversation. Eye contact, firm handshake. It's kind of funny, it got to a point where they say, here comes Dr. Wilson, shake his hand quick. Because they know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
They know that that's going to be a good firm handshake, there's going to be eye contact, there's going to be a smile. What am I doing? I'm reaching and teaching, giving them a skill set that will last forever. Forever.
We want to get to this brother.
May
here.
I
He's
just really quick?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. First of all, I just want to give Michael a lot of credit. There was a lot of very insightful commentary, and I'm really very impressed. The fact that we had an hour-long conversation without talking about social media, probably a mistake, right? Because it is probably the number one thing that we are fighting against. And also, I'm very sorry, but I have a 4-year-old who's having a birthday today, and I'm responsible for bringing some things to the house, and I'm a little behind schedule. So
This
I'm
is
gonna
a
have to
dad.
go.
This is being a dad, Ben.
Happy,
This is being a dad.
fourth birthday to
Happy
Charlie.
fourth birthday.
Thank you guys so much for this
Sure.
conversation.
Ben,
I'm
we
sorry I got to
appreciate
duck
it,
out
man.
early. Everyone who's here, thank you for coming. And
I think that's a great testament of being a father, man. Really. Appreciate
All right. So please, we have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Rasakim, Father Torch. Speaking from a mentor and as a father, I listened to everybody's compliments and contents, and it was great. Everything was great. And the one thing I would have loved to hear more about is the aspect of discipline and the focus of being a father in today's world is very double standard. This world is double standard. It's always been double standards for fathers, especially for black fathers. There's always been double standard. So it's like double standard times 2. I'm a father of 9, and I can tell you that it's a struggle. I love my children, but it's a struggle. To be the influencer compared to the media, it's like David and Goliath. Okay, you win some, you lose some.
You're preaching.
And to your point, having a vision and having that personal health or self-care, yes, they are important. But what happens when you're dealing with a youth or even a grown man who has lost his youth, right? Who is in the process of constant grief, constant anger, emotional instability, and does not have that vision anymore. His vision is broken to that.
That's very profound.
And we are dealing with young men and men on a daily basis who absorbs this all day, 24/7 of the day. How do we reach that?
Do we want to touch on that now?
Let's open up to our guests.
That's a
'cause we
great
have-
question, and thank you for your honesty in speaking of the difficulty of
I
that.
think we have guests that can actually address some of that.
Okay.
And we'll have to do a podcast specifically for that.
And we could touch on that some of the second. You gonna be here for a second?
Could be here.
We're gonna touch on that some of the second one as well.
You know, that is, what you're talking about is something that is, it's profound. I would use that word. Because it's something that a lot of folks are dealing with, a lot of young men are dealing with. And so you talk about that idea of discipline. How do you instill discipline in someone? Each one teach one, that kind of thing, right? And so we're talking about ways to reach someone who perhaps doesn't have the proper tools. I'll use that word. Social media it's a tool, but it's not always the best tool, right? But there's no getting away from it. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's here. So, but I love your idea of like giving positive videos or influencers to follow, and then follow up. So I mean, for me, as a father, I just tried to be present. I tried to, and I don't have boys. I have girls, so I know there's difference.
He said, "I pray for you."
Yeah. Well, they're adults. They made it through. But
You did too. You made it. You made it.
I made it.
You
right,
made it through.
right. But I think what we're talking about is really just finding a way to break through the noise. There's a lot of noise, a lot of things that are unfortunately getting in the way of the message of, like I talked about before, who they can become and who they can be. I mean, if you tell a person, I remember this when I was a little kid, I heard this, if you tell someone they're stupid all the time, they're gonna think they're stupid.
Yes.
So it's the messaging that they get. So if you're getting a young black man who's hearing this or that, we know what people say, you're gonna internalize that. And so the world I work in is through behavioral health. So we have a term called stigma, right? And so if you use a word towards someone, call them crazy, whatever enough, they're gonna start thinking that they're crazy. Same thing. If you tell a young man you're this or that, they're gonna think they're this or that. So we have to reinforce through positive messaging who they are and who they can be. I mean, I can't say enough about that. I'm sure you probably have something to say about that too, Dr. Wilson.
Well, exactly. As like I said before, being a single dad, that was before technology. Cell phones didn't exist, the computers didn't exist, and everything else. I had to learn how to braid hair. That was strange. I had two daughters. How do you braid?
Dr. Wilson, come on.
Yeah, it was a struggle.
Yes.
But children need discipline. Children need to know they're loved through discipline. Now, there are negative connotations of discipline. We know it's out there, but it doesn't mean where you have to really make the child, I think as Carl's saying, make the child feel threatened or make the child get defensive. It's having the conversation on a regular basis about, I love you, but guess what? These are the expectations because we have a big plan for you. Because sometimes, going back to being a vision, let's start with a goal. Your goal is to get a college degree. Or what do you see? Maybe I always ask that question because it goes back to one's personal motives. Where do you want to go with all this? And let me help you get there. Now, back to each one reach one, each one teach one, the ideal. As a father, I'm going to even my child messes up, I'm still there. If they fall, I just go, you know what? Stand up and go like this. Dust yourself off and keep on going. Jesse Jackson had a phrase, when the monkey's on your back, just stand up.
That is true. That is very true. But what I'm going for and what I'm shooting for is value. We don't instill value. We don't
value?
practice value.
Value?
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't instill this anymore, right? We speak on these things like where you're going to go, how you should get there, schooling, training, right? We do this, but we don't show value.
Yeah.
We could be present and not be present.
So can I chime in? Because that's the biggest thing in my house. Just because of my corporate training, I bring a lot of it actually into the house, which is we have what we call our core values and the culture. So my kids are very big on understanding what the culture is in this house. Not just the culture for the family, but they also have historical context to our historical culture, which one we valued. And I had 4 core values that I was held accountable to, and they knew they were going to be held accountable. So I taught them the word integrity, right? Resiliency, okay? Empathy. These are things that repeatedly, and I had all these sayings and quotes that I would constantly beat into them. When I say beat, I mean verbalize.
I was about to say, come on, man.
Browbeat, right? But no,
Caribbean.
no, but to your point, but that piggybacks at what you said. I have a 19-year-old son. This is a real life struggle for me because my son is being raised in America, very different from a Haitian value system. The voice in America is more prevalent. That doesn't mean America doesn't have a good voice, but it's more prevalent than what we're accustomed to. My son, his friends are affluent. For me, we're in bed by 9:30, right? TV, if you're gonna do technology, it's off by a certain time. If your homework ain't done by this time, it's not gonna be done because I need you to rest. And so this is gonna piggyback what you said. I realized the only thing that I can do is be consistent.
That is key.
I'm consistent, and even when my son messes up, and this is a saying my son eventually when he gets older, hopefully he says it. I said, I don't know why God gave you all these talents and abilities and gifts, son, but you're meant for something. I'm gonna trust the process. And that's giving my son the space to know, I believe in you, this is okay, this is part of this journey, but my values will never, ever change no matter what the situation is. And at some point, my hope is it's gonna click. Because for me, I was labeled retarded and stupid growing up, right? I was kicked out of school. And all it took was one mentor who was unapologetic in believing in me, which is the scariest thing as a young person. When someone sees more in you than you see in yourself, it's like, what? I can't live up to this. But guess what? I got a full scholarship. When I got to UB, it wasn't a football scholarship that I received. I got there on academics.
I got a football scholarship.
Right? And then got converted to a football scholarship once they realized what they had. So it's not just Los. But I think we do have to kind of bring
I can play
this.
a little bit.
Brother,
wrap it
if
up.
you stick around.
But I'll say this. Can I see that program, Carl? I'll say this as a bullet point. Thank you, sir, for the question. We're going to still be here for the second half. I'll say this as this quick bullet point exercise. Value and structure. I'm going to be real quick. This is the structure. We said it as fathers. That's the structure. You're going to buy into that structure. I ain't going to force you to. That is the structure. Now, as my child, you may come outside of the structure, but you can never say, I never said it for you. And guess what? I was a state trooper. Again, bullet point, real quick. If you ever see guide rails in a road, you'll never see guide rails for the entire stretch of the interstate. You see guide rails mostly on turns and bridges. You know why you see them there? They're there to keep a minor accident from becoming a major one. We put a guide rail in, son, daughter. Live inside this guide. And if you come outside of it and you get hurt, which I hope you don't, one, you're going to learn your lesson. Two, you can never say your father didn't set that guide. You're going to have to say to yourself, Dad set a guide with value, and I chose to come out of it.
I have one more. I have one more to say. With the guide what you're talking about, the prevention, right? And the discipline when I mentioned, I want us as fathers, as men, especially as men, black men, when it comes to discipline, we have to be patient with ourselves. Because sometimes we forget, we tend to, the whole point of loving yourself, we tend to project what that understanding should be.
I was guilty of that.
Where is it? Instead of me talking to my 15-year-old, I'm talking to him like a grown man, and I have false expectations of how you should learn and how you should take in the lesson. Because now I'm dealing with you.
Listen,
you from that.
I got 5 children. You say he had 9. God bless you. I got 5. I'm from the old school. You do it because I said so. You know what I'm saying? But 21st century, my fourth son said this to me. He was like, what's your name again? Rusty. My fourth son, he was like 5. I said, do it. He said, but why? I said, because I said so. He said, but why? I said, boy, I found myself explaining myself to a 5-year-old. I'm like, my dad would have never done this.
My dad still won't.
Right. But watch what happened. When I explained it to him, he never asked me, but why again? He actually needed to know why.
Yeah.
And this is a different generation where maybe for some of my children, because I said so, would have worked. But for this child, he needed to, it explained to him. And once I explained it to him, wasn't disrespectful about it, he said, okay, Dad. Never did it again. So I understand the patience. I understand the learning, especially in the 21st century as a dad. Anything as we go?
I think we kind of have to respect our guests.
Let's do it.
Great panel.
Yes.
The question was, and this is a selfish question for me, man. I'm the one that came up with this question because I needed help. So, and I realize, and tell me if I'm wrong, when I think about what does it mean to be a man now, it still is protect, provide, love. What we're saying is the way we do it has
That's
to
true.
change.
That's true.
Right? The responsibility will never change because that's how we've
Right.
been designed.
The methods may,
But the methods
message.
have to change,
Right,
right?
right, right. Yeah,
the
yeah.
tools have to change.
There we go.
The inputs, the information has
Yeah.
to change, and that would allow you to still provide,
Yeah.
provide love, provide safety, provide structure, provide stability, provide emotional awareness, and protect what I've provided you in an environment that will allow you now as a man to go out there, share your story, because there's a responsibility now for us to help create new stories through the people that we mentor. So that's just me saying thank you, man. Los, take us out.
Man, can we give them a hand, please? Thank you, Los. I appreciate you so much. As we always do here, you can follow us, subscribe, look to the channel Black Dad Unfiltered. You can find us on any social media. We are Black Dad Unfiltered. I'm Carlos V. Spencer here with Coach Rod.
Right? The mission is ignite, inform, right? Create change. Let's go. Let's grow. Let's get it.
All right,
Thank
y'all
you,
be blessed.
folks.
Thank y'all so much.